Good evening and welcome back to the Pinken and our loan series, where we're taking a look at some of the players who've been away from Carrow Road temporarily at other clubs. The latest in the series and the last in the series is Vicente Reyes, the goalkeeper who arrived at the club with a lot of promise, a lot of hope for him. Obviously, a Chilean youth international, and he's been sort of coming up the leagues. He's already secured a loan to League One with Cambridge United for next season, but last season he spent the back end of it in League Two with Forest Green Rovers. And with that, I'm delighted to be joined by Ben, a Forest Green fan. And if we just get started with sort of the context that he came into, I know this might be a bit of a painful question for you to answer, but what was the situation around the club when he arrived back in January?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a tough time for Forest Green when he came in. I think it was around February, early Feb, 13th, 14th of February. So it was a bit of a turbulent time. We was on a bit of a slippery slope within League Two. We had previously, before he came in, Troy Deeney at the helm of Forest Green, and he brought in a real young talent, Stoke actually at the time, Tommy Simpkin. He's part of the Stoke setup, a real promising young lad, and as soon as he came in, then Troy Deeney was obviously sacked, and then that's where we had Steve Cottrell come in, and at the time Luke Daniels, our main keeper, was actually injured. So that's where we made the move, obviously for Reyes to come in, and that's how it came about. Just to come in and help us steady the ship, should we say, and try and survive League Two, which obviously unfortunately didn't happen. But what a goalkeeper!
Yeah, with the results the way that they were, it was a pretty difficult situation for him to be going into. Really, not much first team football at all in his career. So to be going to League Two in a club where, I mean, people are probably fighting for jobs, and it's a huge situation where results are really poor. He did really well to sort of come through that and perform really well, even with the way that things were going, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when it was a bit of an unknown. When you get emergency goalkeepers in, and we had James Belshaw throughout the season as well, which some people might be familiar of. But when we got Reyes, we were like, who's this guy? Well, he's from Norwich. He's got to be half decent. And I think he was on loan before, wasn't he? Was it Aldershot or somewhere that he's been out before?
Yeah, I think non-league he's been,
Yeah. A young lad could come in and blimey, he's a tall lad. So we were hoping that he'd come in and command his box, and he certainly did. What a great talent. There was a few times where we were backs against the wall, obviously fighting for survival. And you need a keeper to do the job, right? Come and demand the box. Take everything out of the air, and he was superb. Great stop, shot stopper, real commanding, and I think where I realised what resonated with myself was I think Walsall at home. He saved a penalty, and then we went on to score 2 goals and win the game 2-0, completely out of the blue. So, and I think that's where with me it was like, wow, this he's got something about him.
Yeah, that was one in, I think, a few games where it felt like they were sort of building a bit of a mini revival, obviously tailed off again towards the back end of the season. But after Steve Cottrell was appointed, in that initial good period when it looked like maybe the fight might be slightly on, how important was Reyes in that, and how impressive was he in that?
Yeah, so important. He was, I think, you can tell, no disrespect to any other goalkeeper, but you can sort of tell the upbringing and what they've been through, because his movement, his kicking ability, the way he just comes across the ball with his foot, and he just when you watch him, it looks like he's making no effort to goal kicks or free kicks or whatever else, but goal kicks. It's just effortless. And I've tried being in goal before. You just put so much effort into kicking the ball, and it just goes a couple of meters. But with Vinny, he just slices across it, and he can kick a ball. And that's where we needed it, right at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah.
He was a massive asset to helping us. And at the time, we really thought survival's on here. Survival's on here. It's going to happen. And then obviously, like you say, towards the end, it did tail off. But when you're playing, the top 6-8 teams in the last sort of 10, 12 games, it's always going to be a uphill battle, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned his ability on the ball, because I was going to ask you sort of about the tactics that he was part of. I think anyone who's watched sort of Championship Premier League football is used to that, and then thinks about maybe League Two and the lower end would expect a bit of a rougher style of play, should we say, and maybe a little bit more defensive, and especially with the situation Forest Green were in, the sort of manager Steve Cottrell has been. But it sounds like he was still actually able to use those sort of more modern goalkeeping aspects. Maybe it wasn't little short passes, but he was able to show, wasn't he, sort of how good he was kicking wise and how accurate his distribution can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and if when you look at Forest Green, it has an identity. We had David Horseman in, which was all around, playing ball, should we say, playing on the floor. Yeah. And then obviously we had Troy Deeney for a while. And then when Steve Cottrell comes in, it's a different style of football, should we say, but what I would say about Steve is his style is adaptable, right? And I think, at times it was a case of long ball, get up the other end of the pitch, defend, in the other half of the pitch. But then there were times when we were under pressure, and you can't always do that, right? So that certainly, we certainly had the ability to change our style, and Vinny played a massive part in that. I remember, was it Barrow away? There was I can't quite remember what it was, but ball come to in, and he turned back inside the player and played out. It was a bit ropey, right? We were just worried that the striker was gonna have him, but he made up for it and made the striker look silly. But you definitely see that different style. You've got to be adaptable. I think every game you can't go into each game with the same mindset. I think every game's different, and you've got to be agile, right? You've got to be able to change your style depending on what's in front of you, right?
Yeah, just wanted to touch on one more aspect of his game that you sort of talked about, and that was the command of his area. I think you look at his age, and when he first signed, maybe that wouldn't have been something that people would have seen as a strength, especially with the sort of more physical aspects of that league. But sounds like you were pretty happy with how well he commanded his area in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the guy, what was he, like 6'4", I think he is.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. He's a real powerhouse, and towers over above some of our defenders. At times, just that's what you need in a goalkeeper, right? Your 6-yard box. Any corners, any free kicks, set pieces. You want to be coming out and commanding that box and grabbing the ball and just taking the ball out of the air, and at the end of the day, is you're only as good as what's in front of you, right? But you can certainly help, and he certainly did that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know sort of what the answer to this is going to be, but I wanted to ask you about the future for Reyes. As I mentioned earlier, he's secured a loan to League One with Cambridge United, and from how well you've spoken about him, it sounds like you'd expect him to step up pretty well and to cope with that division pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's got all the ability there for sure. I think I always say, when you 1 in 10 keepers that you get at the club, they're going to go far, and certainly Vinny is going to go far. I think last keeper we had at Forest Green is Robert Sanchez. He's now at Chelsea.
Wow, yeah.
So we had Bobby Sanchez on loan from, I think it was Brighton. And even then we were like, he's a decent keeper. And look where he is now, right? And certainly now, Vinny, I think he's going to make the top for sure. I'm interested. I'm really interested to watch him grow and see where he goes.
Yeah, I was interested. I'm even more interested now he's been compared to a Chelsea goalkeeper, and that's
Yeah.
always good
Well,
endorsement.
yeah, some people might say Chelsea are not very good, right? But they've had a turbulent time, haven't they? But yeah, definitely, I think he'll make the top.
Yeah, I think Norwich fans would definitely take the turbulent top half of the Premier League, to be honest. But
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, that was high praise. But thank you very much for joining me, Ben. That was very insightful, and I think pretty encouraging, probably for a lot of Norwich fans in terms of the future for Vicente Reyes.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sam.